Okay.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the infamous podcast Life After Work, where four now retired gentlemen, all in their sort of 50s, some of them just about hanging on to their 50s, let me tell you, get together and have a chat. And sometimes the pre-podcast, the pre-recorded chat is probably more valuable than the others. Today, I've been ganged up on by two Blues about Liverpool beating United. They just they sort of capitalize on these little things, But anyway, enough of that. My name's Rod Maxwell. I retired 6.5 years ago after a brain tumor, and I've been messing around doing podcasts and local radio ever since. And this podcast, I have to say, has been a huge part of my rehabilitation. To my left, top left, is Mr. Phil Harrison. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, thank you, Rod. Good to see you again.
Nice to see
And
you.
you guys.
How's the cycling going?
I'm very tired at the moment. It feels like it's been a long winter. I don't know whether another year older means it gets another year harder. That's how it's certainly feeling at the moment. But I'm sure I'll get back there again.
There you go. And bottom left is the former dentist to the stars, and now I like a crypto king, basically, Mr. Ash Sharma. How are you, sir?
Afternoon, everyone. All good. All good. How are we all?
Wonderful.
Excellent.
I've had better weekends, I have to tell you, but you know. My therapist is doing good work on me. And bottom right is the man who we all envy because of his location and his perpetual well tanned looks. Mr. Paul Davis, the author, the poet, and the all round good egg. How are you, Paul?
I'm absolutely wonderful, thank you. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Enjoying the sunshine over here.
Here too.
Well, we are as well.
As you can see, look. Oh.
Yeah.
I went to Gran Canaria last week for a cheeky break with Helen, and I went out of term time, which was quite good because there's no lots of UK kids and all that type of stuff. And then I realized that I was amongst the sort of the elder brigade of life, and it was all right, actually. It's one of the perks of being retired early is that you can go outside of term time. One of the other things is that you have to get used to a certain demographic who have a more greater propensity to go around in scooters, if you know what I mean. But it was all right. It was all right.
I once went to excuse me, Gran Canaria in the winter, and it's terrific because you've still got the nice warmth, but like you say, you've not got thousands of people there fighting for a lounger or screaming and shouting. It's quite peaceful. And the thing about, and I'm going to include Benidorm here, especially the Old Town. The thing that you notice about Spain in the winter, just how beautiful it is. You don't really see that if you go there on holiday in the summer because you're all flying down to the beach or around the pool, and you're busy trying to entertain yourself. But the actual, if you look at the mountains, the coastlines themselves and everything, beautiful country. Just follow Spanish.
Gran Canaria was as well. Anyway, we I think we're gonna entitle this episode "The World We Don't Understand," even though we're at the loftier heights of our lives, and we possibly should understand it because we have more experience. Anybody want to kick off with a particular subject? Because I know we were talking about it, but I totally forgot about it.
Well, I had one, didn't it? Because it's topical at the moment because I'm doing a bit of work. But it occurs to me that this is something I've never quite got to grips with. And it's not to lambast them. It's merely under this title of I really don't understand tradesmen. I mean, I wish if we got a tradesman on, they could explain a lot to me of how it works. Coming from a professional office background, insurance, financial services, it's a world that I don't get, and I don't know any personally, so I can't to them about what their world is like and how that business works. But I'll start with the fact that so often I'll ring a tradesman up to try and engage them, and I don't know them from Adam. They don't know me, so I hope it's nothing personal. And they say, "Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm interested in that." And I even start it by saying, "Look, is it something you might be interested in?" I've not approached anyone, not done anything about it yet. Is it something you might be interested in? Yeah, of course it is. Where are you? Very local. I'll be round, whatever, next day, 2 days' time. I say, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Never hear another thing from them. Why? What happened consistently? What happens in that very same day or the next day that then stops them from even ringing up or texting? It's so easy these days to say, "Oh, sorry, mate, something happened, couldn't come round, but I'll be there tomorrow." So often, just never hear anything. And I genuinely do not understand. So I don't know if one of you guys can help me with it. Or is there a mystery? Is it something I'm doing wrong?
I can totally empathise with that, Phil, because the listeners that know, and you know, when I have the fire at my house, you know, you want to get in touch with builders, plasterers, electricians, all the people that can put it back to normal. And the incredible amount of do you know what it's like? It's like they're doing you a favor. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Hello, you know, I need this doing in my house, but 9 times out of 10 I got, what needs doing, mate? And it's like, what are you saying for? Because your food on your table is going to be paid for by people like me, so less of the saying and come on round. And then they come round. Yeah. Here's one thing about tradesmen. Yeah, this is what I don't understand. They come round and they look and go, yeah. What does that mean? I don't. What does that mean? Just tell me. This is how a tradesman should be. Hey, mate, yeah, what you need here is this, this, and this, and it's going to cost that much. I'm a bit busy, but I can fit you in, blah, 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 blah. Thanks very much. That's what I need to know. Not, oh, yeah, it's going to cost between 50 quid and 4 grand this. I mean, come on, give me a little ballpark figure, folks. And then when you say, right, I'll be in touch. Yeah, well, it won't be for another month. Well, why are you coming round when my house has been burnt to the ground and I need it doing like ASAP? I don't get it. And it is like this. It's like we said off air. I don't know if it's because, you know, the Polish tradesmen and the Bulgarian tradesmen, they work from 7 in the morning till 7 in the morning. They're non-stop all the time for like 50 pence an hour. And when they say they're going to come round and do something, my God, they're on the ball. They're there. I'll be there on Monday. Come Monday, not. They're getting you out of bed. And I don't know if it's now they've gone away. The only tradesmen we can rely on are British tradesmen. And have they now got this? Have they now got this upper hand where they go, yeah, you want us now, don't you? You want us.
This was a recent phenomenon. I'd agree, but this has always been the case. I'm not saying that isn't true, by the way. I think you're probably right there that the supply and demand thing has changed with maybe following Brexit. I think it was a point you made, Ash, wasn't it? That maybe there are fewer tradesmen around, and those therefore that are competing for the business don't have to compete quite so hard. I don't know, but I've always suffered from this tradesmen not doing what they say they're going to do.
I think there's two things. Is there's different skills, right? And a lot of builders have come from being on the tools, as to say. Their skill is their ability to be on the tools to, you know, do carpentry, to do brickwork, etc., etc. That doesn't necessarily make you a good business person or a good customer relationship style person. And in some ways, you know, yeah, you have to take the rough with the smooth. They're not always going to be great at administration, etc., etc. The big question is, are they actually good at their fundamental job? And I always find that really hard to get a gauge for. How do you know that somebody's going to be good? What they say they're going to be
which
good
is
at?
why a recommendation is invaluable, isn't it? But I think I've discovered with recommendations, for example, I'm not lambasting all tradesmen, by the way. I have a plumber who comes and does work every now and again for us when we need it. He is superb, and I'm not going to recommend him to anybody. Partly because I know he doesn't need the recommendations, but I don't want to change that supply and demand thing. I don't want the next time I ring up, we go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. You know these recommendations you give me." And I wonder whether that's when I've asked for, I need a plasterer at the moment, and people say, "No, I don't know a plasterer. Sorry, no, not got one." So nobody seems to know a plasterer, or they all know a good plasterer, but they don't want
Keep
to
it to
give
themselves.
him up, as it were. Yeah.
Always so. Always so. But I don't know whether it's improved with these recommendation sites, Trust the Builder or whatever. I don't know whether it's actually got better or not.
I'm not sure it has, because I've had instances of those where I don't know that they run the proper checks that they say they do.
Yeah.
And I'm being generalistic, so I can't get sued, and I'm not naming any specific one, but I don't think they're infallible, and
Do you know what I was going
that's
to ask
my
you guys? Do you know when you do eventually get a tradesman, and let's say they end up being really good, going back to your other point, how many of them actually were quite personable, quite chatty with? And, so is it mutually exclusive? You get one who's good and not good at it, one aspect of it, or do you actually, is a good tradesman someone who does everything, who's good, personable, chatty, listens to you?
I've had a Tyler who was, it's not just about being chatty, personable, yes, polite, yes, professional, yes, but chatty doesn't have to be. I'm paying them to do a job, not to chat. So I had a Tyler once who did more chat than work. And I thought, I ain't engaging you again, mate. Unless I want someone to chat to. You could get him on the podcast, Rod. He'd be fantastic. Wouldn't do any tiling though.
Yeah.
Again, shall remain nameless.
No, we had a couple of decorators who were a year and a half ago, and they were really good. They were quite personable, did chat a little bit, but they're good at their job as well. So I think they stick in your memory a little bit more if they're easier to get on with, aren't they? And they listen to you and not as grouchy and grumpy.
Oh, absolutely. And certainly that chatty bit, if it's a question of, yes, being attentive to the customer needs, let's say. So yes, understanding what it is you want. But on a simple, like that needs tiling, that pipe needs fixing. It doesn't, this is basic stuff, I guess. But a more complex building contract, definitely, they need more interaction. And
it frustrates me because I think that there's a business opportunity there to run a company that is almost like the front end of a bunch of different trades. And you basically have the customer engagement side where you take away all the organization for the person who's too busy in their lives to do it. You essentially subcontract across, but what you are is the liaison with the customer in a language and a professional way that they understand to their timescales, and whether it be email or whatever. And you can keep them up to date with status and show them photographs and all that type of stuff. I think there's a great opportunity to create a front, if you like, organization that does that, sources materials for them, etc., and almost project manages stuff on their behalf.
I'll say I suspect, I can only suspect, I don't know, otherwise it wouldn't fit under the heading of this podcast, would it? That a world I don't understand. But I wonder whether a lot of contracting companies work exactly like that. The build and design people, they have a certain understanding of the industry, of course, but actually they do just exactly what you've described there, that they do all the heading of jobs, pricing up of jobs, they understand all that customer liaison. Behind the scenes, all they're doing is engaging with the various trades that they need. So they've got the contacts.
But Phil, here's the business opportunity, right? It's a bit like I've told you about my driving Miss Daisy idea, right? Retired people who want to drive to do taxi jobs for people, right? There's must be a lot of people out there who are handy people who don't want to do heavy work and don't want to have to go out and find the work, but enjoy using their hands and doing tools. And if you could have a company that has an army of these people available to you, you could almost create a service for house owners that does a regular maintenance thing. Whatever goes wrong, and you pay, I don't know, 50 quid a month for the access to the service. And then the job might be a wee bit more than that or something. You know what I mean? I think there's an opportunity to keep some people busy, keep them on the tools, keep them engaged and interactive, but they don't take responsibility for finding work, doing all the bureaucracy, all the administration. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had an interesting experience last time. I been a TV aerial person asked. And it's one to watch out for. Again, it was a new one to me that you says Altrincham Aerial Company. And it struck me as strange that it wasn't an 0161 number. It wasn't a mobile either, but it was an 0300, 800 or whatever it was. Long story short, I figured out after the event, it's a national company that's wherever you Google from, it tells you they're local to you. And I'm sure they're just engaging then local contractors. So they're doing, again, I think, exactly what you're saying, which is they're just picking up they understand Google, they understand marketing. They pick up your business. The bad bit of it that I saw through was they sent somebody round they said, well, somebody will be round, and they went quite quickly. I think it was next day. And then the sales ploy they engaged in was like double glazing. It was, they were saying it's no obligation quote. And luckily I'm quite assertive like that some people, once they're in your house and on your site, they find it hard to say no. But the guy said, had a look at it and said, talk to Dave on the phone, who's the manager. And he said, yeah, I've priced this one, it'll be, and it was something stupid. It was in the hundreds. I said, it's an aerial. It's a what? And he said, well, what do you think's reasonable? And it blew my mind. I thought, hang on a minute, you're the expert. You're asking me what's reasonable. And I played in a daft mood, so I played that game. I think 25 quid's quite reasonable to me. What do you think? So, and he was more than happy to engage in a stupid, crazy negotiation. Well, I say crazy. He was starting so high that it was that classic that they'll come down to something, and then he'll ring his boss. And I think, Jesus, this is an aerial quote. What happened to your local aerial guy who came round, charged you 50 quid for his, which is a decent hourly rate for a small call out. It's because, and he said, all right, I'll do it for 200 quid. I said, you've got one more chance before you're out, so your guy's out of the door. So anyway, it's
I reckon they come and they
don't understand.
First of all, there's the postcode lottery, right? So they look at your postcode, and then they turn up and they look at your house. They see what car you're driving, and then the increments go up and up and up. You know what I mean?
I absolutely believe that's the case as well. Yeah, there's definitely a price based on what they see in front of them, their assessment of your ability to pay.
I mean, Phil, I'm really surprised if they're on the website, they don't have like a menu of stuff, simple aerial fitting, £50, blah, blah, cable attachments to Virgin 100. So you just know what you're playing with.
No, I should have been smarter, but I thought, my naivety really, I just thought this will be simple. It's just, years ago, decade ago, I had a person to do an aerial. They were fantastic. It was simple and easy. It was a local tradesman guy who did aerials. It's a straightforward job, in and out, reasonable price, done. And I just was too blasé about it. But sure, I can probably find them, because all I did was thinking, I'll just get a local person. So if I put Altrincham Aerial or something like that, I'm sure this company still exists. They'll still be out there trying to fleece people.
It's Altrincham.
Won't name them again for legal reasons.
Altrincham Aerial's based in Glasgow. They'll come it's petrol money. Well,
hang on. We'll make clear we're not naming anybody. I'm not saying that's the company that came out to me, but I'm just going to see if.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine if other company, if other industries were like? Can you imagine if you schlep down to Waterstones and then you put your few bucks on the counter, go right, okay, that's 50 quid, and you go, oh, what do you think that book's worth? I don't
exactly. Yeah, it's not a negotiation over there. I'll offer you a fiver.
Did you ever have that, Ash, with dentistry where you would have a basic price for, I don't know, a crown, but then somebody'd open up their mouth and you go, big job, and you got them on the chair and you're thinking, oh, really big? No.
I mean, the thing is, beforehand, we know what we're going to be doing. So before we even started, we'd say, right, this is the simple thing. Now, the weak point here, it may well be the core or whatever. I might need to build this up, and I really don't know until I get underneath it. The X-ray is not going to pay. You have to always give them a
contingency.
Was
contingency, exactly that, Rob.
In the dentistry world, did the prices go up and up and up the more you did, or was there a cap on it? Dad joke time. I had to throw it in.
Oh no!
I get worse with age.
No, but when you have to tell people things, you have to. Sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail for it, just to tell them about.
You see, you didn't even know you did it. Then you didn't even know you did it.
Actually, you ever have somebody who would turn around and say, I don't know, say it was 200 quid or something. They go, tell you what, I'll give you 100. There you go.
Yeah, we had for checkups when we did the checkups. I do a treatment plan, and then it's out there. I said, right, this is what that is, and he goes, right, okay. Do you do anything if I paid for it all now? Is it cheaper per filling? I said, no, because the nurse is still going to need paying, and everything else is the same. At the end of the day, nothing has reduced because we still do them one at a time at the end of the day. There are people, and in the end, eventually they'll go away. So there was a saying, when I first qualified, one of the dentists in Salford, he said, eventually, Ash, you'll get the patients you deserve. And you can apply that to everything. You get the clients you deserve, the friends because it depends on how, if you're willing to put up with nonsense and accept things, then people will just be attracted to you, and you'll keep. But if you're quite strict and fair, then eventually they'll appreciate that, and then that's that. And people, generally, the patients and friends and clients or whatever you have, they will appreciate what you're doing, I think.
I agree. I think consistency is the key.
Yes, exactly.
And it is what it is. You can't be fluctuating it just based on, demographics, if you like.
It creates a bad impression because you think, what are you basing this fee on? It's ridiculous.
But do you know what? We once had a house painted, and it was somebody who pretended to be a painter, a decorator, and it was just appalling, and to the point where wallpaper was coming down off the wall, and it was just absolutely awful. And you sort of think, I mean, I do, but this is going back sort of probably 15 years ago, and I do think things have got better, where it would be quite hard to find somebody who is such, I'm not even a cowboy, just so bad that they would still be able to stay in business. I would hope that with all the different websites and stuff like that, that there is greater transparency now about people.
Yeah, I think so as well. There's less places to hide now because bags of views, and this will become, everyone's going to know about it very, very quickly. So if you're not trying to the greater fool theory, whereby you've got to keep finding people. You like takeaways, let's say. If you're rubbish at what, you're not going to get repeat custom, are you? If you're not very good, so you have to be good at some point, don't you?
Yeah, but I was talking to somebody, I was interviewing somebody earlier on today, and this still sickens me. It saddens me more, actually, than sickens me about what's gone on since the pandemic, which is I have still not seen any positive response in what happens in this country post the pandemic. It's like we haven't, service hasn't improved. We haven't learned anything from it. And it just seems like we're back to the same old. And it's the same with the building trade, for example. Despite the fact that there was, a lack of jobs or lack of money going around, nobody seems to have upped their game, if that makes sense. Anybody disagree? Do you think they have?
Illustrate. What do you mean? So, what have you noticed?
I just don't think that across the patch there's been an upping of the game post the pandemic in a way that sort of says, look, we're taking a bit of time. Whatever it happens to be, it could be taxi drivers, it could be restaurateurs, it could be whatever. It just feels like We've just slid back to old lives, old way of doing things, and nobody's actually learned anything from it and pushed on. You know, maybe I'm.
I
Do you know
think,
what?
I think maybe
I think about this. People are now using, and this is what annoys me. People are still using the pandemic as an excuse for substandard work. You know, you get something that hasn't come through the post, or you're waiting for an update from something. Oh yeah, it's because of COVID. She was short staffed. Hang on a minute, COVID ended last year. People are going back to work, and people have now found that I don't actually have to go back to work. I can work from home, and because they're out of the workplace dynamic, working at home, I'm going to go on the computer, but I'll make a brew first, and then I'll go and have a lie down, and I might watch a bit of morning TV. And the whole system, they're still giving back. It's because of COVID, and it's like, no, sod off. It's nothing to do with COVID anymore. It's to do with lazy ass people that can't be bothered notching it up a gear and going back into the workplace because they can get away with it. And bosses and employers are letting these people get away with it, and it's not good. It's not good.
A lot of companies have wised onto it though as well. I know the American, was it Twitter and Google? They were asking their employees to come back to work again, and before it was like a split of 2-3 or whatever. They said, right, come on, like you just said, Paul. At the end of the day, they just want to keep, their productivity was initially the same, but it wasn't eventually. Like you said, it just tapered off. So they say, like, come on, back to work. You're more productive when you're interacting with other people, bouncing ideas off, especially if you're in the creative industries and things like that. When you're sat on your own, it's really hard, isn't it? I guess if you're in advertising and things like that.
But that's where I agree with Rod, with what Rod said. You would think coming out of this pandemic now, people wouldn't have this attitude. They would be like, do you know what? We're out of it. We've got freedom of movement again. I'm going to switch on and knock it up a gear. So my business is the one that people are going to call or use. I'm going to make it a lot better. What did we learn in COVID? Well, when we weren't in COVID, we should have done this, this, and this. This is what we've learned. And they should have implemented all that in change and made them a bigger and brighter. But people have just, they seem to have lost it. Do you know, here's another thing I don't understand. As we're on the things of don't understanding, I'll flip it slightly. I'll say opinion, right? Opinion. You used to be able to have an opinion, and that was great. People would listen to your opinion. They might not have the same opinion, but that's your opinion. But this is my opinion, blah, 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 blah. You'd have a decent conversation. Where's it now come into human life that I have my opinion, I ain't going to listen to yours. What I'm going to do is I'm going to force my opinion on you. And unless you understand that my opinion is the only opinion to hear, I'm going to kick off, or I'm not going to listen to you. Well, it's and this other thing, woke people.
Oh,
the woke people. For years and years and generations, people have been aware of racism and as such, where there's victimization of different races, colors, genders, whatever. But now, and you feel these people, and there's discussions going on, and that's great. Nobody should feel victimized or discriminated against. Nobody. But why do I suddenly hate the word woke people?
Oh.
I'll tell you why. Because it's a bunch of 19-year-old bloody know-it-alls who've got some degree in sociology from university that think they know how the world runs. And they're the dicks that give your opinion and won't listen to anybody else's. And that's something of this age I don't understand, because if somebody with intelligence and understanding of something is telling me something, I won't try and argue the facts if I don't know what I'm talking about, but they seem to. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, why don't I know what I'm talking about? Because of this, this, and this. Well,
because you don't agree with them.
You're wrong. That's just opinion. Opinion nowadays seems to be all over the place.
Paul, that came to a head 2 weeks ago when we're all like Roald Dahl. We all like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I don't know if you heard this. But
Yeah.
I'm going to say it anyway. There was the fat kid. Now you can't say the fat kid. It's got to be the big kid or the enormous kid. I mean, that actually sounds even worse, to be honest with you. But and then the other one, and then they got what's the other one? He had an ugly personality, or they said he was visually challenged. I mean, what the blood? That's even worse. I mean,
well, they've changed now, haven't they? They've gone back on the decision. They're not changing any words. Yeah, they're not changing any words in their old album.
It's ridiculous. I mean, anyone with an ounce, iota of common sense, like you said, Paul, are going to make the decision within their own brains. They're going to say that it was a product of its time, it was a story of its time, and just look at the theme of the story.
But you know what's the problem with that whole thing? The problem with that whole thing is the fact the decision's been made not to change them didn't make headlines. At least I didn't see that. What you heard was the headline of the initial, hoo-ha. And that's what sticks in your mind. And it, I don't know, I don't understand who is generating this noise, where it's coming from, and what the end goal is, apart from trying to, I don't know, give themselves 15 minutes worth of fame or castigating the whole of society from the past as being completely
and the whole thing's being sensationalized by the media, and the media inflames the situation. Right, for example, we have a certain singer, we all know who that singer is, that's gone on and he said fisher them instead of fishermen. Okay, he's decided to say fisher them. But
Phil, do you know who he's talking about?
Okay, so basically, because I've got Sam Smith, the singer, was interviewed in a few things, and because I think he's transcendent. I'm not sure if he is or he's just but the thing is, he was using the pronoun instead of fisher them. That's what he was using, fisher them.
Fisher them
instead of fishermen. Which, if somebody wants to call them fisher them, that's fine. That's their choice in life. But the media, what the media was going on about is the fact that, the presenters of the One Show, they're so bad because they kept saying fishermen and it's fisher them, and it's no. Let me just stop. And it was on about Piers Morgan that said the wrong thing, some other interviewer that said the wrong thing, and it's like, let's stop you there. They haven't said the wrong thing. They've said what they believe is their belief, their facts, their opinion. If somebody wants to call a fisherman, that's what I've been grown up. If somebody wants to call them a fisher them, fine. But don't tell me that fisher them is now the correct way to speak. We have an English language, and my English language doesn't say fisher them, it says fishermen.
Fisher them.
And controversial if you like, gentlemen, I'm willing to accept people's opinions. And this is what I mean about opinion. This is exactly the point I mean. I'm willing to accept people's opinions and people's views. Come one, come all. Thank you, Lord. But don't try and push your values and your beliefs and change the dynamics of the English language to make me feel bad or make me say what you want me to say. It ain't happening, folks. It ain't happening. That's just my little rant. So opinion, in my account, in my world, used to matter. Now, if you have an opinion, you're in deep crap with somebody somewhere.
But I think it's not just the opinion being putting you into the deep crap. It's trying to have a discussion about it and rationalize it and see a balanced point of view. I don't get there is any rational discussion on this stuff. Everything has become so extreme, and it's you're not allowed to have a counter view, even if you're calm and discuss it and whatever. You can't seem to have a counter opinion, and if you do, you're castigated and you're filed as being, I don't know, old fashioned, not even old fashioned. Anything that's more extreme than that,
You're absolutely right, and you hit on the key word there, because what they'll throw out, what they'll put into the English dictionary is fisher them, but what they will throw out is rationale, because people are not acting rationally. They are making little mountains that will grow into big mountains, and the media seem wanting to be latched onto this snowball effect and decry everybody that says something wrong. You know, again.
I need the context to that, because surely, what's the objection there? Because is it that not all fisher people are men? Is that the objection, that you can have a woman who's a fisherman?
I think that was it. It was non fishing is non-gender specific, isn't it? So their argument was you can't call them fishermen because there are women.
Well, you know what? The English language is a great thing, because we could have the word fisher, couldn't we? And it would.
Yeah. Why fisher them and not just say
fisher person? A fish person. A fisher person.
Or a fisher.
Yeah, fisher.
I need to understand the point that was being made. They're a fisherwoman. You have a fisherwoman.
We got police.
So I don't understand the point he was making, and I'd need the context to that.
But really, what we want is something that's generic.
From Sam Smith, it was about being non-gender specific, not just non-gender specific, but that idea that it might be someone who doesn't identify as either a man or a woman. And as you say, Paul, that's fine. But if you knew that was the case, and you knew that person wanted and happened to be a fisher, wanted to be referred to as a fisher, then fine. I don't have a problem with that either.
No,
but it's what are you going to do if you 99.9% of circumstances you don't know that about someone when you're using the term. So
exactly. But the point I was making, I watched.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with your point.
Yeah, I watched the clip with Sam Smith talking to Alex Jones, is she called? The girl on
the one show.
So, and it was a normal conversation. He was saying fisher them. Nobody was going, holy crap, why are you calling them fishermen?
Was he just being provocative, do you think? Was he
No. They were talking about fishing, and he said fisher them. And they were saying, in the conversation, so you said to me, I went out and saw some fish of them. And you said, yeah, my dad used to be a fisherman, or I've seen some fishermen. It's a normal there was no malice and no wanting to stoke a fire, but the media jumped onto it and made it into this catastrophic interview. And it's like, why have you done that? Why have you drawn attention to it? I don't understand it.
I mean, and where do you stop as well? So when it becomes, is it a batsman? Not a batsman. Why not just a batswoman?
Well, he's a batter now. In the
batter, that's right.
That's in the 100. They've deliberately changed it, and that's fine.
We're from Manchester. It'll be Person-Chester.
Well, do you know what? We
don't mind the batter
thing,
because
we jest, don't we? But like Ash said, where does it stop? Where does it stop?
I think in each circumstance, you look at the sense of it all, and does it make sense? Doesn't it make sense? I don't understand the fisher them thing, but I have no problem with batter, because now they're covering the men's. This came in the 100, and they're trying to just update things, making the point in a subtle way that, and because now there is lots of women's cricket televised as well. So for it to be able to be uniformly presented in both formats, women's game and the men's game, they've come up with this terminology of batter, and it's like my fisher analogy.
Yeah, well, that's actually
analogy.
That's more palatable.
I think, but you know what, that makes sense. Now, if you wanted, you could, in the men's game, you could call them a batsman. In the women's game, you would call them a batswoman, wouldn't you? But it just doesn't sound as, it sounds a bit clumsy.
No, but if the commentator knew that they were, what's the word I'm looking for? Where they're,
wouldn't you? If you were commentating on a men's game, you could call them batsmen.
But if they don't identify with either, then would you say batsman?
Well, but that's my point about the earlier thing, the fisher them thing, that for people, I don't know the right terminology, I'm sorry. But for people who don't want to be identified as either man or woman, and that you'd never know that as a general piece of public information, would you? Generally,
can you help me?
So I don't think that comes into the conversation, really, does it?
Can you help me here? Because I feel like I'm really behind the curve. What sort of situation where somebody wouldn't identify either as a man or woman? What's the context to that?
That's a non-binary.
Yeah, non-binary, isn't it? Yeah.
I know, I
People
know,
who don't identify.
I know what the term is, but what's driving that desire to not identify as a man or a woman?
You'd have to ask that individual person.
I don't know.
They're in a motivation, isn't it? In a sense of identity.
Yeah.
And again, to Paul's point, you have to respect that feeling, I think.
No, I do, but I'm trying to understand the context where somebody wouldn't. Is it somebody who's had some gender change, for example, but partially, and therefore, I'm trying to understand, because I think today's society has bent over backwards to try to compensate and accommodate all minorities, and I don't mean we shouldn't, but I mean even the smallest the smallest change from the norm, and we're bending ourselves backwards where you can trip up over almost anything,
Yeah.
and I'm finding it impossible to keep up with all these changes because they seem to be happening all the time. There'll be new terms coming in and new accommodations that need to be made. I can't keep up with it, and it's like an industry in itself.
With this harks back to something we mentioned before. I think sometimes the media likes to be sensationalist and likes to up a storm, when actually in the minds of the majority of people in this country and possibly around the world, there is no great all about all this. We do accommodate minorities. We are respectful of minority opinions in general. And I just think the media, that's not a great thing to report. And that's a bit boring and humdrum. Let's create a bit of a storm. So I think they deliberately stir things up in the media and say it's this whole woke thing that I think the media now likes to overplay the woke thing so it gets a backlash.
It sells papers, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, exactly.
It does
the sensationalist media.
Do you not think it was the same back in the 80s? If you take the amount of hype around Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Relax, right? Where I'm sure they even probably debated in bloody Parliament, but you do get these moments where things get sensationalized and actually just turning around and going, yeah, fine, okay. It takes it out of the spectrum and takes away all the attention. But during that time in the 80s, we had a number of these. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax, the whole video, all that. My God, I mean, more people wanted to see it because they were being told they couldn't. And actually, what really, when you look at it now, it was harmless, really. Wasn't it really?
Yeah, it was good. That it's slightly different in its fact as it was that. If I can't have it, if I'm told I can't have it, I want it. So whether it was, I mean, it was Mike Reid that was it Mike Reid that
yeah, it was Mike Reid
banned it from BBC One.
Did he?
Yeah.
He
did a lot. Yeah, he did a lot of banning of records. But the moment he banned that, they went to number one.
Guaranteed its success, didn't it? And it may have been anyway.
Guaranteed. But yeah, of course it did. I mean, and like you say, Rod, you listen to the song today, and it's like, you know what? It's tame. It's really tame.
It really is.
Especially since you'll never win with the of things with words because, and I'm not going to name them here, but I'll name them off there maybe. There are a host of songs that are absolute filth that played and no one ever realizes
exactly
what they're about, and that's sort of the point, that don't bring attention to it. Those who do know what it means aren't going to be offended, and those who don't are oblivious to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Rod makes me laugh in some of his shows when he plays a record that he doesn't know, and at the end he goes, "So that was then." Sorry about that. We had a wee swear word in there.
That's true, though.
Caught out with a few parent advisory.
No, sometimes the version you get doesn't flag it, and I go, all right. So I do the it's very Gay Byrne of me, I go, oh, sure to God, wash his mouth out with soap and water. And actually, it's the women who are worse, to be fair. But
when you play a song with the title "F you, Mother Effer," you should know that something's happening.
I thought they just put MUFC the wrong way around.
Well, I mean, if you talk about censorship, like you said there, Bob, if you're going to try to set, like Lady Chatterley's Lover, with the H. Lawrence there, they banned that, didn't they? And then that was guaranteed. It flew off the shelves. Everybody wanted to, do you want to buy a copy of maybe I've got it.
Do you know what, Chas? We have said this before on previous podcasts, and I'll remind you of what we were talking about when Channel 4 started.
Oh yeah, that red triangle. Do you remember? Yeah,
they put the red triangle on.
Yeah,
Don't watch it because it's got a red triangle. Their viewing figures went through the roof.
All the school kids coming in the next day knackered. What were you doing? Red triangle stuff on.
Because they might have seen Melinda Messenger in a bikini or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I'm thinking? We should do that either with this podcast or I should do it with my radio show. Too Hot to Handle, or you can't have it. Maybe people will start listening, But
it's crazy, isn't it? The way, like we say, we look back on the Relax song by Frankie and other such, the Carry On films where it was all very risque, and it was kind of, and then you fast forward to the 21st and the year 2023, and you think, in my mind, there's no censorship anymore. None. I can't. You see the films, and I know people say you can always turn the TV off, blah, blah, blah. But we used to have, if you remember, gentlemen, and allegedly they still have it, a watershed. But I remember EastEnders, the guy called Nigel calling Philip a twat. That was at 7:30. The watershed was so. That watershed, and you look at some of the things that are on now, pre-watershed, and you go, oh my God, you'd have never got away with that in the 70s and the 80s.
No.
So I don't.
You're right. If you look at football matches as well, some of the chanting, you can obviously hear what's going on, but that's not pre. All you have to do is, if you heard something that you didn't quite like, we apologise in advance for that. And he's going, yeah, man.
I mean, the massive thing. You remember with Live Aid, Bob Geldof swearing on live.
I remember that.
Huge. Yeah. Oh my God, Bob. But they're saying it. I'm surprised newscasters aren't coming on now and going, news today is all bad. So there's another thing I don't understand about this world. Where's our censorship gone? Where's our sense of what's right? What would be heard by impressionable kids?
That's always.
But also, it's who. There seems to be some people who are governing what we hear. I mean, let's take it. The Ukraine war. It's just almost like it's not happening anymore. We're just, it was that famous for 15 minutes, and it's out the door at the moment. I can't abide that sensationalist, everything focused on it, News 24 all the time, and then it just goes, and we're on to the next thing, and
censorship. I'm sort of quite happy if we're wondering, where's the censorship gone? Because I'm very, it concerns me, that very idea that there's another group of people who are deciding what is fit for me to watch or not, in a general sense. And I'm conflicted because I know you have to have some. There's about where children are concerned, but I'm very happy to leave that to individual parents. But beyond the problem with the children, an age-related one is more problematic. But if we leave that out and say, other than that, I'm very wary and very skeptical about there being a subset of people who can decide what's acceptable or not to me. How come you get to decide that? Not and aren't you instantly corrupted if you're on that board? You remember the board of censorship for films, the ones that put the red triangle on them? Having watched them to decide that they're too racy for the rest of the public. Are those people now, do they become depraved and corrupted because they've seen that? And if so, then they shouldn't be doing that. And if not, well, why can't I? What's wrong with me seeing those? And it's the whole concept I'm very wary about. So I'm
I-
sort of
I-
comfortable if we're wondering where censorship has gone.
Yeah, I get that, and I am on the side of it should be more. I'm thinking more towards impressionable kids that the censorship should be there.
Yeah, that's more
You,
problematic, like I
look at
say.
films now on the cinema. You know, a PG. Some of the PGs in our day were the X-rated ones that you only got in to see when you were 18, because some of the stuff that goes on in them PG films, it's like heavens above. It's quite, some are quite racist, some are quite violent. There's swearing, and you think, I know PG is parental guidance, but in our day we had a U, an A double A, and an X, didn't we? That's what we had at the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And now that
As you conceded earlier, Paul, put an X on something and it just increases the attraction to those who aren't meant to be seeing it. Isn't it?
Yeah.
But
So-
is it as simple as attributing a lot of this to the internet and the fact that actually people can't control what you watch?
I certainly think that's a practical that fact has practical implications that actually it is almost impossible to censor now.
Yeah. And
Agreed.
therefore, what's happened? I mean, you can't blame or you can't attribute it to everything, but what it's done is the access to information and the freedom of choice and access means that you don't have a group of people, grey suited people, telling us what we can watch and listen to on the BBC, on ITV. That's gone away now, and it's self-responsibility. Is that such a bad thing, really?
I want to make myself clear on what I'm meaning here. So, for friends of mine, their kids have got tablets and they watch things on it. Now they've got on the tablets do you know where you can restrict what's being watched? The parental control. They've got
Controls,
the control on it. They can still click on something that is meant to be a PG or a 12 or something like that. That the parental guide has allowed them to watch. But I look at some of these films and I go, that's too old. That's too old for a 9-year-old to be watching. Yet, what it is, I don't think the censorship and the parental guidance, the parental control is actually in line with what's being produced film-wise. I don't think that the syncing, because these people think it's acceptable to do that, where parents are thinking, no, it's not. But then one of those films will slip into their what they've stopped seeing. And like I say, I think censorship, people will make up their own. Adults will see something and either act or dismiss. That's what they do. Act on what they see or dismiss what they see. That's the way the human mind works. So all this, you know, like gamers, he used to play Call of Duty and that's why he's gone out and shot up 1 million kids at school. No, it doesn't. They have a propensity for crime. They have a propensity to kill somebody. Playing an Xbox game doesn't make you do that. I know, not hundreds. I know a big number of Xboxers and PlayStation players, and they don't go out and shoot up towns and everything like that. But so, yeah, as an adult, you act on what you see or dismiss what you see. That's the way. But kids are impressionable. And if they see something that their parents thought wouldn't get into their category, but they're watching it, would they go out and try and emulate what they've seen, for example? So I think we need to, the society needs to concentrate on protecting the kids from what is on the internet. I know I'm waffling on a bit. I can't.
Does that mean we don't trust the parents to advocate that?
No, we do trust the parents. What we don't trust is the TV show and film producers who are making their content to fit within the parental guidelines, but are clearly not within what the parents would want the kids to see.
Basically, they're sneaking in unsuitable stuff. Yeah, you get that. I mean, the other part to that as well, Paul, is the fact that when you advertising, for example, advertising seems to get through as well with unsuitable. You know, they're going on about the watershed times. You know, in terms of You're probably going to think I'm being a bit extreme here now, but in terms of lots of like sugar, sweets, and diet, but we know we've got obesity, and there's a massive health epidemic going on in the world, and especially in this country as well. We've got to be careful of that as well. But the advertising just seems to be, they can do what they want. They have these they grease the politicians' palm, don't they? With the same with gambling, wasn't it? They were meant to be, gambling in sport, and then there was meant to be, all they do, if you were listening to radios, radio adverts, they'll do blah 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 blah, and then suddenly they'll forget to take a break. Right at the very end, gamble responsibly. And you, what? Sorry, what did you say? And it's just hardly anything. But they're still advertising this gambling, and so what I'm saying is that they're censoring lots of obvious things, but when the advertising is sinister and it sneaks in, and it has a horrendous effect on health for kids and on adults as well, in terms of, it can ruin lives, can't it? We know that.
In terms of what you just both mentioned there, one of the most difficult things, and we've just emphasized the importance of, it's parenting. And that definitely comes under, I mean, I've done mine now, largely. I think we all have, possibly, largely.
You only think you have.
Or we think we have, maybe. But certainly for the younger ones, we've been through that. And yeah, that is definitely something, even having been through it, that I would put under this banner of things I don't understand. And we've just emphasized the importance of it. Yeah, I think it's one of the most important jobs you can have on this earth.
Yep.
And yet we don't. Plumbers get qualifications. We had exams to get certain to do our jobs. We were constantly tested on our competence, and we're allowed to be parents with no guidance whatsoever. And I do think it's something that be on offer out there somewhere that actually tells you. I mean, there's loads of aspects to this. We just talked on one of them about how you apply. Well, is it discipline or guidance? That whole idea of what do you expose your children to in terms of censorship and otherwise, how you show them moral leadership and guidance, everything from child psychology to then help them with their learning, behavioural issues, and we get what support was there. I'm sure if you go look hard enough, there's somewhere to be found for specific issues, but frankly, I had no idea what I was doing. I don't mind admitting. And I suspect that's true of 99% of parents, and you somehow muddle through. I know we all survive, but I can't help but feel it would make it a lot easier.
I think it's a good thing that some schools, in fact, I think most schools are now bringing that into high schools, that is, are bringing that aspect of life into studies, aren't they?
That's a really good thing if they are.
Yeah, it's not social skills.
Citizenship, did they call it? I think my kids went through something.
It might be, but I know that what they're doing is
of that, how you live in society. And there should be more of that, I think. Those things are really important. Sorry, I think it's opened up a whole new topic that we don't have time for, but couldn't help but get that one in.
Well, I think schools should focus a lot on that. Say, look, statistically, out of this class of 30, 3 are going to be pregnant before they're 18, let's just say. So you need to know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
The options, this is how you look after the blah, 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 everything.
If you think about, you never go through, say, high school and they take you through the cost of life, right? Nobody ever sets out, a mortgage, what you're going to need to look after the kids, blah, blah, blah. They just assume that you will know that stuff. And actually, maybe putting it out there might help people work out what they need to do. It's weird how you can walk through life and there are certain things that you just pick up matter of fact, as opposed to being sat down and told about them.
Like that taxation. I mean, what a shock that is to the system when you really get a job. You earn that much money, and you think, boosh. No, you don't actually only start working for yourself by, what is it, March or April? I
think schools, again, Rod, going back to your point, I think they're now starting to mold that in as much as, mortgages are expensive. If you want a mortgage, you want to buy a house, you need to have a good job, and you need to have a good job by getting these particular and it's sort of built backwards, so that they are throwing that in there. But I've lost the thread of what I was going to say. So over to you guys.
Well, look, gentlemen, it's going to wrap up because we've hit the 60th minute of this podcast in what is our 60th episode of our podcast as well.
Wow.
So
Nicely done.
60 drops of I don't know, what would you call it? Wisdom, insight, learning, guidance,
Wisdom, I think, is a
Rambling.
chat.
I think the correct phrase you're looking for is winging it.
You think as you get older, you become more expert at winging it?
Oh, you become a professional bullshit. That's something they don't teach you in school. That's something they don't teach. You do.
Ash, I have been retired now 6 a bit years, and there are some times I think, goodness, I'd like to go back just to take the pressure off and realize how much you could wing it. Actually, you know, you can take a little bit of content, and the rest of it's just experience and a bit of hoo-ha, you know, and that's what. But what, you know, there are classes of people out there who are told that and learn that early in their lives. It's taken me 50 odd years, and it was too late to realize actually you don't need that much. You can get away with it, and the rest of it's bravado, really. You know,
Well, what did Oscar Wilde say? He said, "Youth is wasted on the young."
Yeah,
it is. If only we knew now what we could apply
you
it then.
go back, wouldn't you? I mean,
Yeah,
that would be
sure.
quite
Hopefully
funny.
there has been a little bit of wisdom now and again in these podcasts.
Yeah.
Who knows? We can but hope.
If we could get a DeLorean, and the four of us just go back and, you know, go back to our old lives, sit down and say to
I
our,
think they're making a fourth.
they are. It's called is it the Hunt for Marty or something
Is
like
it?
that? They are making a fourth.
is it going
Which-
to
I thought you
be?
meant they were making a DeLorean again.
You only need one of them. They were future from the start.
Well, we'd need two
In
because they were a
Belfast.
two-seater.
Hmm?
It's all right.
They're only a two-seater.
So we're stuffed.
Yeah, put a
Yeah.
roof rack on. Me and Ash can sit on the roof rack. We'll be fine.
Well, exactly.
Well, I would still like to do a road trip with you guys. I think it would be quite funny just to film that, you know, going around somewhere.
4 men in a van.
Tell you, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. I reckon we can get it commissioned. I'm sure RTE would love it, you know, or
Well,
something.
they did
special.
it, and before did it, 3 men in a boat.
Well, it'd have to be 4 of them in a van, wouldn't it?
But yes.
For them.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, exactly that.
Well, there you go. Was it not Van Morrison who was ahead of his time? His band was called Them, wasn't it?
Was it?
I think so.
It was indeed.
Yeah, so he's ahead of his time. There you go, another Ulsterman ahead of his time. Well, this Ulster one's gonna close this podcast in time. We might be back. We don't know, do we? Really? We don't need to
Ad
be.
hoc. Ad hoc.
We are ad hoc. But happy 60th, guys.
It's been a good time. Good 60.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say.
So we're going to have to call them Life After 60 now.
I've really enjoyed it.
No, I have.
It's been good.
It's
It's been good, chaps.
Saved
It's
my
been
brain.
a pleasure, gents.
Nice one.
It has indeed.
Take care. We'll be back sometime in the future.
Take care.